What's going on, everyone? It is the Durf, and today I have an absolute powerhouse Prismatic Hunter build. You guys have been asking for a Prismatic Hunter build, and I'm giving it to you right now. This build is virtually endgame ready. It can be tweaked with a variety of different play styles in order to suit however you guys play the game. You can outfit it with 2 different types of exotic armor if you want, and multiple different exotic weapons. This build is extremely versatile. It takes advantage of the artifact very well, and it has one of the best supers still in the game on top of it all that you will be able to proc in as little as 30 seconds on a regular basis. That's not counting all the orbs of power you're going to generate. That's also not counting all of the additional tick damage you're going to have, and it has virtually unlimited ability uptime. So if you guys have been looking for a Prismatic Hunter build for Heresy, this one I'm hoping sincerely will not disappoint. It is one that people are talking about, but not as much as others. So it is a little bit off the beaten path, but I'm telling you, once you get used to the playstyle of this Hunter, I'm thinking you guys are going to want to incorporate this into your regular gameplay. If you do find anything helpful with this video, please consider liking and subscribing. We did just hit 500 subscribers on the channel, which means I'm now able to offer memberships. It will not affect me bringing content to you guys, so don't think you're going to see any less. And after this week, I'm not going to be even bringing it up again. I want people to follow and subscribe and like my content just based on what they see, not because they think that I'm after any money. I am here for helping people. That is what I set out to do, and with all of your support, I am able to turn that dream into a reality, literally. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. As you guys know, I'm going to have a dim link as well as my Discord link in the description. If you do know a guardian in need who's looking for a great hunter build and loves Prismatic, send them my way or share this video with them. So I'm going to cut right to it. Let's get on into this. This one is going to be a fun one. Let's go. The super of choice is going to be the Silk Strike. The main reasoning for this is because it's going to be a roaming super. Roaming supers recently got a buff for the energy regeneration, and this one is one of the best ones to roam around the battlefield and just take out gobs of enemies. For the abilities, I personally like the Acrobat's Dodge. Once you dodge, you become radiant, you get enhanced damage to combatants, and you are able to pierce barrier champions bubbles. This is going to be especially helpful if you are running weapons that don't have a barrier capability in them. So I'm going to go through a bunch of different weapons you can use for this, on top of knowing that you're going to have Radiant and the Acrobat's Dodge in your back pocket virtually at any time. Next up, we've got the triple jump. This is just what I prefer, but if you guys like blink or a different type of jump, whichever one works best for you guys, that's the one I would recommend using. Melee, you're going to want to put on Withering Blade. You can stack it up to 2 times. Blades that hit targets, stun overloads, first of all, and after accumulating enough slow stacks, the target becomes frozen. So you have a way to actually freeze enemies and generate melee kills at the same time. For the grenade, I have the Grapple Grenade. The reason I have this is because I'm not going to be heavily reliant on any of these other grenades here. While some of these are going to be good choices for some people, I like to be able to pull myself towards a group of enemies and unleash a melee strike. That melee strike will count as a powered melee and will leave me with a tangle to use against any standing enemies that might remain, or to chuck it somewhere else where I might find myself going after the group of enemies I just pulled myself into. For aspects, we got the Stylish Executioner. Defeating a target affected by any elemental debuff grants invisibility and true sight, and after performing a Stylish Execution, your next melee attack while invisible weakens targets. So yet another way to take advantage of melee strikes. And honestly, I think it is probably a staple in just about every hunter's build that runs Prismatic, but it is a great way if you are in the heat of battle, getting that little brief break where you are invisible and enemies are not targeting you sometimes can be the difference between reloading your weapon and getting back into it or dying. If you haven't messed around with the Stylus Executioner, this is your sign to put it on. Gunpowder Gamble is my next aspect. It is a solar aspect. Defeat targets with abilities, elemental debuff damage, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. Throw the grenade, and it can be shot in midair to cause a solar ignition. So those solar ignitions are going to be able to stun unstoppable champions. This is going to pair well with the Withering Blade, which is going to be able to stun overload champions. So you got two different types of champions already handled, and we haven't even gotten into the rest of the build. For aspects, Facet of Purpose, you pick up an Orb of Power and you are going to receive Woven Mail. Facet of Balance, rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. So one of the things that's important to note here is I have both darkness energy abilities in the Withering Blade and the Grapple. So I'm going to be getting back my grenade by using my melee, and because I'm using light heavy weapons, or either way, we can use light or dark, you're still going to get both of your Transcendence energy bars proccing on a very regular basis. Facet of Awakening, rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows, generates an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. You get a +10 to resilience, but basically any weapon that you defeat multiple targets with, you're going to get an elemental pickup. I don't care what it is, it's going to get you your energy back faster. So let's say you throw your Gunpowder Gamble and you get a bunch of kills from that, you're going to get a Fire Sprite. Fire Sprites are going to give you your grenade energy. Let's say that you take out Withering Blade and you get a couple of kills with that. You're going to get a Stasis Shard, and once you pick that up, it's going to restore your melee energy. So either way, and if you use Void weapons or Strand weapons, you're going to get that Void Breach or the Tangles. Either way, you can't really go wrong with this. Facet of Ruin is next up on the list. I am taking advantage of a +10 to mobility, as that is very important for hunters to be able to get their class ability back faster. Increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target, and increases the area of effect of solar ignitions. This is going to be pivotal because we are using not only the Gunpowder Gamble, but we are also using Withering Blade. So the ability to shatter frozen targets and also increase the detonation of our solar explosive is going to be really important once we get into more ad-dense situations. But either way, even if you're just roaming around a planet, just randomly picking off enemies as you go, it's still going to be a noticeable difference. And oh, by the way, shatter damage stuns unstoppable champions as well as the ignition. So just another way that you can take advantage of stunning capabilities for your build. Last but not least is going to be Facet of Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While transcendent, the effect is increased. I'm taking a bump to strength on this, but the big takeaway from this is going to pair nicely with my Grapple Strand Grenade. The reason being is, like I said, I like to launch myself into a group of enemies and unleash the melee, dealing area damage and getting my tangle. So when I am surrounded by those enemies, I'm going to be more resistant to any damage they may be throwing at me that I might not be able to avoid. For stats, I decided to focus on resilience first, followed by mobility and discipline. The reason my stats are the way that they are is I got a little bit lucky with my rolls, so I was able to stack into discipline and strength while also maintaining a decent level for mobility. I would say for mobility, you want it to be somewhere around at least a T4. The reason being is anything after a T3, so beyond 39, is going to give you a little bit of a bump back to getting your Acrobat's dodge. You see the base cooldown is at about $122. With the increase to a T6, you're going to be sitting right around a minute. And as I'm going to show you real quick, you can see that at a T7, your grenade is at about a minute, and at a T8, your strength is at about a minute. So this is going to be important in being as balanced of a hunter as possible. So you're going to get your dodge back, you're going to get your melee back, and you're going to get your grenade back virtually in a minute. So theoretically, if you somehow exhaust all of them within 10 seconds, you're going to have to obviously seek some cover and, avoid some damage and rely heavily on your weapons. Or maybe you've got your super proc. That's the time to pull your super out. After about a minute or so and picking up some orbs of power, maybe even less, you're going to get all your abilities back again. So this theoretically could be the most balanced way to make your hunter. Only thing better would be is if you got your discipline and strength up to like a T9 and somehow we're lucky enough to get your mobility up to like a T8. But that's not very realistic for the average player, and you really have to get lucky on some armor rolls to make that even a possibility. For weapons, first up on the list is the Kinetic slot. Now you see here that I have the Call sidearm equipped. That's just my preference. What you're going to have to figure out is what weapons are you going to need for the activity that you're running. If you are going to be running a master or a master lost sector or like a higher end content strike or whatever, the Call might be your way to go. But just remember, if you are going to be seeing unstoppable champions, you're still going to want to have your fusion rifles as a backup. For general play, I recommend using Rufus' Fury with Demolitionist and Hatchling, or Mikkel's Reverence with Hatchling and Elemental Capacitor. Either way, these 5 options, if you are running the build the way that I have it, you can swap between any of these 5 options and you should be able to cover every champ that you're going to come across. For the energy weapon, I'm going to recommend Graviton Lance as your main ad clear with Le Monarch as a close second. The reason why Le Monarch is a close second is because you are able to deal damage from a distance and your poison spreads and continues the effect of killing ads as well as being able to stun overload champions. So in a situation where you're going into like a master lost sector, for example, and you're going to be moving kind of slow, you can put this on and run the Call for the barriers, or you can put on a glaive or a fusion rifle or whatever, and you'll have unstoppables and overloads handled. But honorable mentions are going to be pretty straightforward. Age-old Bond, the Recluse, the Mahis, and yes, if you have it, the Fortunate Star. The reason the Fortunate Star makes this list, and I understand I have 0 kills with this because I generally use another one, is Destabilizing Rounds got a rework. So now you can proc that way more often. So in the event that you do like to play it a little bit safe, the Le Monarch and the Fortunate Star might be viable options for dealing with ads or enemies from a distance. For the heavy weapon, you can see I have Pro Memoria. I also have Commemoration, Retrofit, and Hammerhead as backups. It's really going to depend on what you want to main more. If you want to be able to synergize your ammo mods with Strand, I recommend putting a Strand weapon on your heavy and in your Kinetic slot. However, you can easily swap this out for Commemoration, and you can easily swap this out for a Lost Signal or Scatter Signal and or a Riptide. So the reason that this is important is you have a lot of different options with the artifact because you can proc volatile rounds, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Theoretically, you don't necessarily need Graviton Lance. You can put on your favorite Recluse. You can put on your Mahis. You can put on Age-old Bond or even the Fortunate Star. And you can proc volatile rounds and still do area of effect damage. If you do that, like let's just say you want to run with Age-old Bond. Well, let's say that you're not confident in your skill to be able to proc Volatile before the barrier champ pops his shield. You can come down here and put on Deterministic Chaos. Deterministic Chaos has intrinsic barrier stunning capability. So theoretically, if you build this, this way, you can have barrier and unstop, or barrier and really, I mean, you can have a general ad clear. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of different options. But for my my demonstration, I'm going to have the Call and Pro Memoria on so you guys can see it in real time. And I'm going to run with Graviton so you can see all the ability generation possible with these 3 setups. For the armor, it's going to depend on what you are running. Because I am running strand and void weapons, I'm putting on siphons for both. And I also recommend putting on a heavy ammo finder. The general mod, you can see I was a little bit low on resilience, so I decided to put a general mod on for a bump to it. For the gauntlets, spec into whichever mod you need to, but I highly recommend putting heavy-handed and impact induction on, and a void loader. The reason that I have the void loader on is because I'm running graviton. If I were to switch to Le Monarch, I do enough damage with it and it's got a quick enough reload speed, I would actually drop this and put on another impact deduction so that I can get my grenade back faster and basically do more range melee attacks by pulling myself into a group of enemies. Again, I just find that extremely fun to use. It is also very powerful, but if you prefer to use like a firepower mod or whatever, that's totally fine too. Just play to whichever strength you like the best. But because I like to use the grapple to pull myself into enemies and use my powered melee, this one is going to be more important to me than probably other people. But play it to how you like. I mean, you don't have to do it exactly like I do, but at least try it out and, see for yourself before you make that determination. Next up, for the chest armor, the general mod, use whatever you need to. 2 damage resistance mods. I've just got solar and void for the time being. And then mod your reserves for whichever weapon you're using. You saw I switched back to strand weapons, so I'm going to have strand reserves. This is going to apply to the call, scatter signal, and pro memoria. So either of those 3 weapons are going to be affected by the strand reserves mod that I have on this chest armor. For the leg armor, spec into whichever general mod that you need. I recommend Innervation, Invigoration, and Absolution as mods also. However, if you are going into the Nether arena, I recommend switching out Innervation for Recuperation so you can get some health back each time you pick up an Orb of Power. Last but not least is the class item. Now, I know this might seem like we are going to be done talking about armor, but there is going to be one minor addition that I'm going to give as a caveat. Relativism. If you have the role Spirit of Galanor and Spirit of Gerfalcon, Galanor gives you super energy return for hits and final blows with your super. Gerfalcon gives you volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. Both of these are going to pair excellent with your build that you have set up, your abilities and all that. For armor, or for general mods, I recommend just putting on whatever you need to put on. I also recommend putting on Font of Restoration. I also recommend using Reaper shortly after using your class ability, so you're going to have Radiant in your back pocket as well at this point. You're going to spawn an Orb of Power from a weapon final blow. And then I also recommend using Outreach. I want to be able to use my Withering Blades as often as possible to try to freeze targets that I deem threats to myself and or my teammates. If you don't have the exotic class item, you switch it out. Instead, I would recommend putting on Frosties. The reason for Frosties is increased grenade, melee, and dodge regeneration while sprinting. Dodging increases your sprint speed. If you are not able to get your hands on a Relativism Hunter Cloak that's got these characteristics, or you don't have the time to farm for one, and you're sitting there going, well, this build is off the table because I don't have that. It's not. Put on Frosties. You're going to be running around a lot, which means you're going to be giving your ability energies increased regeneration speed. And because you're going to be proccing Radiant, your dodge is going to increase your sprint speed, which is going to increase the regeneration of the grenade, melee, and dodge regeneration as well. So you're going to be able to double dip with these in the event that you don't have the exotic class item. One thing you got to realize, though, when you switch that out, you can see that I'm all the way up to 121 resilience. That's going to be, well, as of right now, I will say it's going to be pointless to have that. But come summer, it might be different. So instead, I would recommend, switching your abilities around to give you what you need in order to get to the tiers that you are trying to get to. So it looks like just based on this, I'm going to have some additional leftover energy. Let's see, I don't really need that. I guess I can put it on intellect. It doesn't really matter. But basically you want this number to be as close to 10 as possible. You see I've got 6 wasted stats there. I say if you're under like 108, you probably don't have to worry too much about reworking your armor because you're going to have enough stats left over to get to where you want to be. But in the event that you don't reach the resilience of T10, I recommend putting mods on to get that to T10 and just let these two go down to whatever they may. Now, if they're down to T2, I would say go and farm some exotic engrams and try to get a better roll of your Frosties. But Frosties is going to give you ability energy back. So it's not imperative that these are, above, let's just say like a T6. They're going to help and be more potent if you are above a T6, but they are not necessary to get that high. But if you do, because you're still going to need your mobility to be at least a T5. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to decide how you want to run it. Again, it's not required that you have the exotic class item. But if you don't, I would recommend putting on Frosties as a great alternative because you're going to be using your abilities on a regular basis anyways. So why not, while you're running around, get passive regeneration on them on top of orbs of power and say your impact induction, which gives you your grenade cooldown back faster. So just something to think about. I'm going to switch this back just so you guys can, see how this is going to go. But essentially, even without Frosties, I'm still at about a T8. I am just under a T5 for intellect, which I don't really care about. And I'm at, I should be at, where am I at here? Yeah, I'll just run with this. It don't matter. You guys are going to see how this goes. So just keep that in mind for the armor. For the artifact, pretty straightforward setup. I'm speccing specifically into void and strand modifications. I keep piercing sidearms, overload machine guns, and unstoppable fusion equipped at all times. Volatile marksman so I can proc volatile rounds. Unraveling orbs so I can proc unraveling rounds, which you're going to be seeing a lot. Hold the line so that I can increase my reload speed and stability by using a machine gun. Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. This one I just keep on. There's really not a purpose for it in this build, but I switch between Arc Hunter and this every so often. So right now I've got that on just for the sake of having it on. But you can also put on like a disruptor spike if you want. Exhaust is applied by disrupting combatants by weapons of the psychohack or subjugation origin traits, or just do whatever you feel is best for your build. But I just keep this on because I do like running Arc Hunter, as you guys know. King's Vestige, defeating powerful Taken, load your weapon with Taken energy. The next time you fire, launch 3 Taken Seeker rounds that disrupt and exhaust targets. So that might be a reason to put on Disruptor Spike. But I keep that on as well because I do find myself in the Nether Arena often. Maligned Harvest and Horde Shuttle grace my 4th column. Damaging unraveling targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling. And rapidly applying Volatile causes your next instance of void weapon damage to create a weakening burst. So this is why I say you can either run the Pro Memoria or you can run like a Commemoration or Retrofit or even the Deterministic Chaos if you want in the heavy slot. Heavy Ordnance Regeneration. This is first on my list of things that I want to have in this fifth column because I want the increase in grenade and melee regeneration while I'm using this for sustained damage. I'm thinking of bosses, majors, and those type of things. The next one I'm going to select once I have it unlocked is defeating weakened targets with a void weapon applies volatile to nearby targets. Powerful targets increase the radius of explosion. When I do unlock this, I'm probably going to switch out my Pro Memoria for Commemoration. But you guys can play around with it how you like. If you like seeing more unraveling rounds, keep the Pro Memoria on. If you like seeing, more weakening, more void proc, put on your commemoration and just make sure to come over here and switch out your reserves to the void reserves. And the reason that you're going to want to do that is because you're not really too concerned on the ammo economy of the call. It does have decent ammo economy to begin with. And there's really not going to be anything else in here that you're going to have to switch out. You've already got the siphons figured out. You don't have a scavenger mod. So just make sure you switch out your reserve mod so that you can get bonus reserves to whatever your heavy weapon is, because that's what matters more so than any of these weapons right here. So that is the build. There's probably going to be some debate on what you can use this build for, but honestly, with the variety of elements that are featured in this build, with the only one missing theoretically is Arc, this is going to be a build that you can take into pretty much anything and come out the other end very successful. It's got virtually every elemental buff that you can think of in your back pocket. It's got ways to deal with all the champions depending on what activity you're running. And if you want to switch things around, like let's just say you're just doing general activity and you don't really care about barriers or unstops and all those things, you're just trying to have some fun, maybe Dares of Eternity, or you're just goofing off with your friends, you can put on Rufus' Fury. You can switch this out for Age-Old Bond or the Recluse. You can put on Deterministic Chaos. Literally any of these weapons can be interchanged for any of these other weapons, and you can main those through virtually every activity and have a ton of fun, generate a ton of damage regardless. You just have to be conscious about champs. If you are going to be seeing champs, that's what I'm going to say. Think about what you're doing in these columns, but I would say keep Graviton on and make these the ones that you change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load us into Altars of Sorrow, and I'm going to show you guys just how potent this thing is going to be. So I've just loaded in. I'm going to start by just doing some damage with my Graviton. Looks like I've got a couple of aggressive players here with me, so we're going to see how this holds up. I picked up my Orb of Power. I've already got Unraveling rounds, and you can see I'm taking a break from the action, and I've already got my Gunpowder Gamble procced in the lower left-hand of the screen. I've got 2 charges for my Withering Blade. I've got almost all of my super energy already, and I've got my class ability ready to go for when I want to proc my Radiant. So even with that little bit of interaction, just a quick hitter from multiple groups of ads is going to give you the ability to just absolutely bank on, being able to do a ton of damage in virtually no time at all. And also have your ability energy available for pretty much anything that you might need. You can see I just threw out my Withering Blade. I got Unraveling rounds procced, and now I've got my super. So you can see I'm not playing super aggressive. I'm just, being a complimentary teammate, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm proccing Stylish Executioner on a regular basis. I'm getting my Gunpowder Gamble, which a lot of people think that you need to run solar weapons for. You don't. All you need to do is have elemental damage kills. So if you have rapid elemental damage kills, which with this build is not going to be hard to come by, you're going to be able to proc Gunpowder Gamble insanely regularly. And of course I used my super right as the event was ending and our location was switching. But you can see even with just a few hits, I'm able to get back approximately, we're just going to call it 30% of my super. So I'm not hurting for super regen. I'm not hurting for Transcendence. As you can see, that's almost full. And again, I haven't been playing very aggressive. So when you are playing more aggressive, think about how that's going to affect things. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go hide over here. I'm going to switch out to Frosties so you guys can see in real time how that's going to play out. You can see I'm at a 9 and an 8 for resilience and strength, or sorry, discipline and strength, and I've got my T10 in resilience. And even though I'm not getting volatile rounds back when I become or when I reemerge from being invisible, I'm still getting ability energy back just from using weapons as well as running around. And you'll see well, you're going to run out of space to see all the different buffs you're going to proc from doing this. But you're going to eventually see at some point rapid cooldown. There you go. So rapid cooldown, when that is showing on your screen, and even when you're just running around, it doesn't have to actually show on your screen. Rapid cooldown essentially means that you're going to have that increased ability regen. So when you're thinking about, you know, okay, what is this really doing for me? Well, it's helping get your ability energy back just by simply running around the battlefield. So if you are running around in the nether activity, or the nether arena, I should say, there's going to be a lot of times where you're not going to, it's not like endless waves of enemies are going to be coming at you. You're going to have to go and seek out different locations to accomplish different things on top of, you know, seeing the enemies. So when you're using Frosties, you're going to be proccing that regularly. And then with Silk Strike, you know, it's still just an extremely powerful super. Just because you're not going to get bonus super energy back after it's all over doesn't mean it's any less worth your time, honestly. You can see we've got unraveling rounds going all over the place. We've got ammo bricks and orbs and all these things to help you, in addition to the way that the class is set up, the way that your build is set up. I haven't even popped Transcendence. That's been ready for, you know, a minute. So this is going to be really a truly complete hunter build. You know, so if you've been looking for a hunter build, I understand that there's not going to be, you know, anything arc related in here. You can see I've got Bolt Charge, but I'm going to attribute that to killing enemies that were debuffed by arc from these friends that I've got here. I mean, you're just going to be, I mean, a ridiculously complete player. Actually, that's what I'm getting it from. I'm getting it from the barrier that this Titan has. So that is the build. If you do find anything helpful with this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I've had a lot of fun coming up with these different builds for you guys, and I'm not slowing down anytime soon. Feel free, if you want, become a member of the channel if you want, but if not, please consider sharing this video with other Guardians who might be looking for a really great hunter build. I appreciate all the good vibes and positive interactions that I've had with everyone this year, and I'm just letting you guys know I'm only getting started. I've got a lot of other builds in the queue for release, and I'm hoping that you guys are really going to be able to take advantage of a lot of them, just like this one, to just absolutely wreck the enemies of the Traveler. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys all for support. Feel free to leave a like and a comment if you want. I will see you guys next time. Take care.